Alright, what is up you guys? I am here with a review of the Price of Fame, the Ted DiBiase story. So, I was kind of weary on getting this. I didn't know if I was going to or not. It's not a WWE DVD release. And, I got it at Walmart for $10. I'm a huge fan of Ted DiBiase. But, going into this, I knew it was mostly about religion. And I'm the farthest thing from religious, so I didn't know if I really thought it was worth it. But I gave in. I'm a huge Ted DiBiase fan. I love the character, great heel. So it's worth. If you're not religious, it's still worth seeing. If you're not into that, go ahead and read his book. His book is fantastic. Definitely go read that. It came out probably over a decade ago now. So let's take a look at the packaging real quick, and then I'll get to the documentary. Alright, so here's a quick look at the packaging. Nothing much to it, just a single disc in a normal keep case. But you have some of your interviewees up top there. Shawn Michaels, Roddy Piper, Jake the Snake, Terry Funk. And then you have Ted DiBiase with the money. A story of hope, faith, and wrestling, the Ted DiBiase story. Show you the spine. And this is not a WWE DVD release. I figured you'd know that by now, but, figured I'd just clarify that. Feature film is an hour and 45 minutes and 38 seconds. You have some bonus features, unreleased interviews, bonus sit-down interview with Ted DiBiase and Jim Ross discussing Mid-South and the $1 Million Corporation. Bonus promo shout-outs, Money Inc. Reunion and DDP. The Making of the Price of Fame interview with the director and more. So decent runtime here. Just have the credits there. And then on the inside, you have your disc artwork. And that's really it, just your sort of eco case. Not too bad. So that's the look at the actual packaging in the keep case. So let's get into the review of the documentary itself. Alright, so a review of the documentary itself. Like I said, hour and 45 minutes, so almost 2-hour runtime. But the basic premise is his son, Ted DiBiase Jr., who you would know from Legacy with Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. And, he had a kind of a brief stint in WWE, a few years, from 2008. And then he just kind of disappeared for a while. And then he left to actually be with his family. And you have to commend that, good for him. So, he's living out that dream of being a father and, having a wife, a family. Left wrestling for that. So, good for him. But, I'm not sure if he's doing anything on the indie scene or anything like that right now. But, good for him. But, it's narrated by him. It's not narrated very often, more in the beginning and the end. And you have interviews with Mean Gene Okerlund, Jake the Snake Roberts, Roddy Piper, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Terry Funk, and then it gets into Shawn Michaels' story a tiny bit near the end. But, like I said, going into this, I knew this was more, honestly, about his unfaithfulness in his marriage, and then how he recovered from that. And then it does get into his wife very heavily. His wife is very heavily featured in this. And as a documentary itself, this is a very well-produced documentary, but it does have some major flaws. That being said, some of the flaws that I noticed very early on, it seems very, very scripted. And I say that coming from a documentary standpoint. Documentaries, a lot of the times, are kind of more reality-based. And, they show, conversations that aren't always planned, and, it's kind of improvised a little bit. And this one, for example, there's a scene at the gym with Ted Jr. and then his brother Brett. They're having this conversation. It's supposed to look like it was a random conversation, but you can tell it's very, very set up and staged. I kind of wish they would have just let it flow a little bit more. You know, not seem so set up and 100% scripted. Yeah, that's really the biggest flaw in this. I just kind of wish it would have had more of a flow to it and just kind of let it pan out on its own. Put these two people here, let them talk. You know, but another major flaw was this is very preachy, and I was afraid of that going into this. If you're not religious, this probably isn't going to be for you. Me personally, I can put that aside and appreciate the story and Ted DiBiase's life, but when his wife got involved, it did seem very, very preachy. So, for me, a documentary should always be unbiased and can cater to anyone, but this one seemed like it catered more to the religious. You know, it didn't have, like, of course it's not going to have an atheist point of view, but you know what I mean. It needs to be a little more split, so you can cater to both without acknowledging both, if that makes sense. But some of the better things about this documentary, you had going into his father, who was Iron Mike DiBiase, and you actually don't hear from his his firstborn son from a previous marriage. You don't really hear about him much, and he's not interviewed or anything like that. So I always kind of thought it was strange. His son, his firstborn, had nothing ever to do with anything. He was never, you know, he didn't go to the Hall of Fame to induct his father like his two brothers did. So I don't know if he just wants nothing to do with the business or there's some resentment. Not quite sure. But it does go into his father very heavily, and you know, it's good to hear that stuff. And it was one of the few wrestlers who actually died in the ring. He died from a heart attack, and he was there to see it. Ted DiBiase was there to see it. And it was very touching how he spoke about his father and how his mother kind of went a downward spiral. And, you know, you can see a lot of his father rubbed off on him in a good way. And Ted DiBiase is genuinely a great person and someone you would want to look up to. And that's, every good person has their flaws, which they heavily get into. How he was unfaithful in his marriage with his wife Melanie, and how she kind of healed from that, and they grew upon it. And it does heavily involve their children too, with two of the because they have two children together, and then one from a previous marriage, and it focused on his two, the middle and the younger, Ted and Brett. So you know, it was cool to see that, the psychological aspect. I'm big on psychology, and you saw their relationship unravel in front of your eyes, even if it did seem very scripted. You know there were feelings that went into that. You know that, you know, they were pouring their heart out for real. So, you know, that was really cool. And you saw Brett actually confronting his father for the first time. You know, I don't know if it was really the first time. It could just be for the documentary. But like I said, there are real feelings there. But overall, it gives you a very good insight to the dark sides of wrestling. You know, Jake the Snake Roberts, his documentary did the same thing. This one wasn't quite as dark as that, because Ted DiBiase really did save himself early on. And you feel for him. You know, he doesn't make excuses for himself. He manned up and dealt with it. And look where he is now. Great family, great wife, better than ever. So, you know, all in all, would I recommend this documentary? You know, if religion really bothers you that much, then you're probably going to cringe a lot. You're probably not going to be into this. I personally love wrestling, and I love Ted DiBiase, so I was able to look past that. But, you know, this does cater towards the more religious type. but it's very well made. There's great cinematography, a great scene where he goes back to the Trump Plaza. I can't exactly remember the arena name, but the site of WrestleMania 4 and 5, very important to his career. And it's kind of misleading because you think you're just going to get your normal WWE documentary. This isn't that. It doesn't go all the way up to his retirement, his WCW days. It's more about his personal journey. So if you think it's a WWE documentary, it's not. It's a produced documentary about his journey. And, it is a powerful documentary. And if I had to rate it, I rate films, I'm a film geek, I rate films on a 5-star scale. I would give it probably a 3 out of 5, so 60%. It had its flaws, but at the same time, I think it's definitely worth watching if you are a Ted DiBiase fan. And, it's just cool. You can geek out at some moments when you see him back in character. You see Jim Ross talking about, some good behind-the-scenes stuff. So, I would recommend it to any wrestling fan. It might only be a one-time watch for me, but, I don't regret watching it. So, check it out. Definitely let me know what you think. And for now, this has been the DVD Freak. Peace out.